was the Queen of New York's high society when she boarded the Titanic with her new husband, John Jacob Astor IV. Tragically, the iceberg that sank the Titanic also sank her marriage. Madeleine and John Jacob Astor were passengers on the Titanic, but only Madeleine survived. Her millionaire husband left her an unbelievable fortune. But in a cruel twist, the money came with a diabolical condition. Stay tuned for more on that later. Madeleine Astor, born Madeleine Force, first opened her eyes on June 19, 1893 in Brooklyn, New York, amidst the shimmer of the Gilded Age. As the younger daughter of William Hurlbut Force and Catherine Arvilla Tomage, Madeleine's life began in an era defined by dazzling opulence and high society excesses. Madeleine was born with more than just a silver spoon in her mouth. Through her father's French ancestry, she was related to Ephraim S. Force, a renowned builder, while her maternal lineage boasted New York State's Assemblyman Tunis V.P. Tomage and the illustrious mayor of Brooklyn, Thomas G. Tomage. But her pedigree went back even further. Madeleine's family traced their lineage back to the founding of America. To her mother, she was distantly related to Colonel Benjamin Tomage, an unswerving confidant of George Washington himself. In a somewhat ironic twist given her eventual fate, Madeleine's father owned a shipping company. He also counted himself a proud member of the prestigious New York Chamber of Commerce. His maritime prowess anchored the family's standing among the city's elite. With such an illustrious background, Madeleine followed her own gilded path into adulthood. Brooklyn's high society embraced Madeleine's family as one of their own, with memberships in elite clubs, an enviable art collection, and ties to the Episcopal Church. The Tomage forces were about as high and mighty as one could get, but Madeleine earned her stripes as well. By all accounts, Madeleine was as bright as she was rich. She attended reputable schools, Miss Ellie's and later Miss Spence's school in Manhattan, where she distinguished herself as a brilliant pupil. In due time, she graduated with distinction in the spring of 1910. Her education outside of the classroom, however, was far more interesting. Despite her family's pedigree, they weren't at the pinnacle of New York's high society. Mrs. Astor, the undisputed queen of New York's social upper echelons, and the mother of Madeleine's future husband, notably excluded the Forces from the vaunted 400, a curated list of the crème de la crème. Even so, they hung around the right circles. While Madeleine's family might not have qualified for Mrs. Astor's 400 list, they certainly lived like the top 1% of the top 1%. Madeleine spent her summers amid the cool breezes, scenic beauty, and minted millionaires of Bar Harbor, Maine. Pretty soon, she would be all anyone could talk about. On December 22, 1910, Madeleine made her official grand entrance into New York society. Her pair celebrated her as one of the handsomest of the debutantes of the season, captivating the public with her radiant charm and elegance. From the sea to the salon, Madeleine proved to be one of the most engaging socialites on the scene. She had a natural wit and conversational ease that lit up New York's drawing rooms and had her peers hanging on her every word. One man in particular couldn't resist her charms. During the waning days of summer in 1910, Madeleine had a chance encounter. Against the picturesque backdrop of Bar Harbor, she met the man who would alter the course of her life forever, though not necessarily for the better. During the summer of 1910, Madeleine crossed paths with none other than Colonel John Jacob Astor IV. The 46-year-old tycoon and heir to the Astor fortune was the most eligible bachelor in town, though not necessarily because of his looks. Astor was worth an estimated $87 million, today valued at over $2.4 billion. But you know what they say? More money, more problems. When Madeleine met Astor at Bar Harbor, the millionaire bachelor was in the midst of a horrible scandal. Just a few months earlier, Astor's ex-wife, Eva Willing Astor, filed for divorce in a highly publicized scandal that exposed Astor's infidelity. And the scandal wasn't over. The reason Astor ended up in Bar Harbor was nothing short of a scandal in and of itself. In August 1910, Eva made an unannounced appearance in Newport, Rhode Island. With her arrival, there was certainly turmoil in the air. Unwilling to cross paths with his recent ex-wife, Astor sailed for Bar Harbor, setting the stage for his meeting with Madeleine. It was during that chance visit to Bar Harbor that Astor first saw Madeleine. He couldn't bear the idea of not seeing her every day thereafter. During tennis with her sister, Madeleine caught his eye with her grace and youthful energy. You might say that it was a game set and match made in heaven. Later that day, Madeleine teamed up with Astor for a mixed doubles match against their siblings. The game, as described by the New York American, sparked a devotion in him that was constant and intense. But fate, it would seem, was already conspiring against them. Madeleine couldn't have met Astor at a worse time. The terms of Astor's divorce prohibited the millionaire bachelor from remarrying in New York for the rest of his ex-wife's natural life, unless a court decided otherwise. Also, he was significantly poorer than he had been. By the winter of 1910, Madeleine had become a fixture in Astor's social gatherings. As the guest of honor at his St. Regis Hotel dinners, she found herself stepping into an increasingly public role. But becoming queen of New York's high society wouldn't happen easily. Madeleine's relationship with Astor continued to deepen, and the couple began making more public appearances together. By the spring of 1911, Madeleine was the subject of whispers among the 400. Headlines began to feature her prominently, with one proclaiming, "New York is interested in Miss Force, a young woman well known in New York society." Other headlines were considerably more brazen. In May 1911, the press took its intrigue a step further. Pretty Girl. May marry rich Mr. Astor read one headline. Soon similar reports filled the gossip columns, sparking rumors that spread like wildfire. Eventually, Madeleine and her family would have to cave to media pressure. On August 1, 1911, Madeleine's father put an end to the ceaseless speculation and gossip. From his office steps, he announced to reporters that Madeleine and Colonel Astor were, in fact, engaged. The exact wedding date, however, remained a mystery. Religious leaders from various denominations voiced their disapproval of the pending nuptials. Even the Roman Catholic Church joined the course of dissent, condemning the union and calling it a violation of moral decency. Critics attacked both Madeleine and Colonel Astor with harsh accusations. The detractors believed their engagement was an extension of his wicked lust, and dismissed her as merely a conquest of beauty, subjecting her to the sting of public scorn. But the detractors might have had a point. At 18, Madeleine was nearly 30 years younger than her 47-year-old fiancé. The stark age difference, combined with Astor's recent divorce, became fodder for endless gossip and societal outrage. But it may just have been a convenient excuse. As for whether or not, Astor was still the most eligible bachelor in New York, and probably the world. As a result, Madeleine began receiving vile letters from other young women who wanted to take her place as the object of Astor's desires. The bitter missives revealed the jealousy and vitriol her engagement had stirred. The relentless scrutiny and hostility took their toll on Madeleine. Shortly after announcing their engagement, she fell gravely ill. Madeleine's attributed her sickness to the severe nervous and physical strain of her impending marriage. She didn't even have a shoulder to cry on. By late August, Madeleine had regained her health, only to find herself back in the public eye. Reports of her dazzling $30,000 engagement ring, which is about $843,000 today, and rumored $5 million settlement, reignited the media furor. This time, her true friends came to her rescue. Amid the uproar and accusations of gold digging, Madeleine's real friends rushed to her defense. They insisted that the couple was a true love match, rejecting claims of opportunism or lust. With their nuptials quickly approaching, Madeleine and Astor struggled to find a clergyman to officiate the proceedings. Many pastors refused outright, and rumors began swirling that Astor was offering bribes, with one Presbyterian minister reportedly receiving a $20,000 offer to perform the ceremony. In the end, a Congregationalist pastor named Reverend Joseph Lambert agreed to perform the ceremony. The date of Madeleine and Astor's wedding was September 10, 1911. The happy couple exchanged vows at Beechwood, his magnificent oceanside estate in Newport, Rhode Island. The ceremony, though intimate, marked the culmination of months of speculation and drama. Reverend Lambert, who officiated Madeleine's wedding, may have not been the upstanding man she had hoped. He later refused to discuss any potential financial arrangements between himself and Astor, stating it was nobody's business. Still, rumors swirled that he received $2,000 for the ceremony, a sum equivalent to $56,000 today. It may have been an early omen that their union was already ill-fated. Undeterred by the scandal surrounding Lambert, Madeleine and Astor set off on a luxurious honeymoon. They started in Raincliffe on the Hudson in New York, before journeying to Bermuda. Their next destination was even more exotic. The couple announced plans to visit Egypt, with the intention of traveling to the Nile by January 1912. While exploring Egypt, Madeleine and her husband joined Margaret Molly Brown, a bold socialite with her own controversial reputation. The meeting of these two women would gain haunting significance in the months to come. After their time in Egypt, Madeleine and Astor toured Europe before embarking on the RMS Titanic at Cherbourg, France. They traveled with a select party, including her adorable dog Kitty and a private nurse. She was, after all, baking one in the oven. Early on in her honeymoon, Madeleine had become pregnant, requiring constant care. By the time she boarded the Titanic, she was already 4 months along and already showing a small bump. Suffice to say, comfort aboard the ship was one of her highest priorities. On the night of April 14, 1912, Madeleine had retired to her cabin when the Titanic began its tragic story. She was struck in an iceberg at 11:40 p.m. Unaware of the looming disaster, she slept as the great ship began to falter. She would get a rude awakening. It was Astor who first sensed the danger. Waking from his own slumber, he woke Madeleine, urging her to dress quickly. Leaving her to prepare, he set off to find Captain Edward Smith and assess the situation. What he learned was terrifying. When Colonel Astor returned to their quarters, Madeleine noticed his grave expression. Though he assured her there was no danger, she couldn't ignore the weight behind his words. The Titanic had struck an iceberg. Amid the chaos on deck, Madeleine later recalled her husband as the calmest man aboard the Titanic. His steadiness became a source of strength during the unfolding disaster. Colonel Astor's confidence in the Titanic seemed unshaken. Witnesses overheard him declare, "We are safer here than in that little," referring to the lifeboats that the crew were lowering into the water. It's not clear whether he believed those words or not. Madeleine almost certainly didn't. Though outwardly calm, Colonel Astor insisted Madeleine change into warmer clothes. Standing on the deck, he helped her don the layers his valet had grabbed for her, determined to protect her against the freezing night. In amidst the chaos, she proved the strength of her moral character. In the midst of the commotion, Madeleine noticed third-class passenger Leah Axe with her young son. In a gesture of compassion that clearly demonstrated her charitable and selfless spirit, she gave the mother her first scarf to help warm the baby up. She clearly didn't understand the grave situation they were in. While waiting for further instructions, Madeleine and Colonel Astor retreated to the gymnasium. Donning their life jackets, they sat on mechanical horses while Astor cut open a jacket with a penknife to show his wife its inner stuffings. Little did they know, things were about to take a much darker turn. When the time came, Madeleine, her maid, and her nurse boarded Lifeboat 4. However, to get themselves properly situated, they had to maneuver themselves through a first-class promenade window. It was a perilous move, but her husband was there to assist her. She had no idea that these would be their last moments together. Colonel Astor asked Second Officer Charles Leidler for permission to join Madeleine on the lifeboat, citing her delicate condition. However, Leidler denied the request, saying that women and children had to go first. The account of what happened next is heartbreaking. Survivor Archibald Gracie IV later recounted Madeleine and Astor's final exchange to the U.S. Senate Titanic inquiry. He described Colonel Astor's composure, recalling his plea to accompany her and, more chillingly, his final words of reassurance to his pregnant 18-year-old wife. As the crew lowered Lifeboat 4 into the frigid sea below the sinking ship, Colonel Astor called out to Madeleine, "The sea is calm, and you will be all right. You are in good hands, and I will meet you in the morning." Sadly, these would be the last words she ever heard from him. But her real struggle was just beginning. Only a moment before Madeleine's lifeboat made it into the water, around 1:55 a.m., a man in a state of great excitement jumped from the deck. The crazed and panicked passenger landed among Madeleine and the other women on their lifeboat. He proved to be almost as dangerous as the sinking luxury liner itself. Madeleine took up an oar alongside other women in the lifeboat, rowing desperately to escape the pull and whirlpools caused by the sinking ship. When the Titanic disappeared beneath the waves at 2:20 a.m., its force nearly pulled them down into the Arctic waters. As icy seawater flooded into their lifeboat, Madeleine and the others bailed it out with frantic urgency. Once the whirlpool calmed, they rowed back to rescue survivors, managing to pull 6 men from the freezing water. Despite the chaos, Madeleine maintained the greatest courage and fortitude. But no amount of courage could prepare her for what came next. Colonel Astor, his valet, and even Kitty, their cherished Airedale Terrier, perished with the sinking of the Titanic. Only Madeleine, her maid, and her nurse survived, clinging to life in the freezing Atlantic until the crew of the RMS Carpathia pulled them to safety. When Madeleine returned to New York, she was a ghost of herself. Reportedly, she was dazed by shock and suffering from a nervous collapse. Her doctors prescribed strict bed rest to help her recover from the traumatic ordeal and to protect her pregnancy. Physicians ordered Madeleine not to speak about the tragic sinking of the Titanic. Fearing it would worsen her fragile state, they noted her badly shattered nerves, adding that she spent much of her waking hours weeping with the recollection of the horror she had endured. She just sounded happy to be alive. By the end of May 1912, Madeleine held her first social gathering since the tragedy. Alongside fellow survivor Marion Thayer, she hosted a luncheon to honor Captain Arthur Rostron and Dr. Frank McGee of the Carpathia, the ship that had rescued them. The only comfort she had left, however, was a vast fortune. Female Astor's will left Madeleine $100,000 outright, plus the annuities from a $5 million trust fund and the use of the family's Fifth Avenue mansion. However, these provisions came with a caveat. She would lose the trust income and house if she ever remarried. Fortunately, she had more to remember her late husband by than just his money. On August 14, 1912, Madeleine gave birth to her son, John Jacob Jakey Astor VI, a.k.a. the Titanic baby. Colonel Astor had left a $3 million fund in trust for his unborn child, ensuring Jakey's financial security. With the miraculous birth of her child, however, Madeleine could no longer avoid the media. For years after the Titanic disaster, Madeleine led a quiet life, focused on raising her son, Jakey. It would take her another few years to fully recover from the tragedy. On June 22, 1916, Madeleine did something that indicated she had finally put that horrible incident behind her. She married her childhood friend, William Carl Dick, in Bar Harbor, Maine. Though this marriage cut her off from the Astor fortune, she seemed happy again, producing 2 more sons. However, even this second marriage hit an iceberg. Madeleine and Dick divorced on July 21, 1933 in Reno, Nevada, but she didn't spend nearly as much time amending her broken heart as she had after Astor's frigid demise. Just months later, on November 27th, she married Italian actor and boxer Enzo Fermante in New York City, eventually settling in Palm Beach, Florida. Still, true love evaded her. Madeleine's third marriage to Fermante ended in divorce on June 11, 1938. Unlike her previous marriage, she had no children with Fermante, and her life once again shifted toward solitude in her Palm Beach mansion. However, she was haunted by the ghosts of her past. Like an iceberg out of the briny blue, Madeleine passed on March 27, 1940, at just 46 years of age. The official cause of her demise was an undisclosed heart ailment. However, there is speculation that the real cause was more devastating. Some sources claim that Madeleine's heart failure was the result of an overdose, a point close to a life marked by tragedy and resilience. Thanks for watching History Expose. If you love uncovering the best stories in history, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring with us. Don't forget to visit our main page, Factinate, for more incredible facts about everything.